What would you do if you needed to trick the Germans so you could invade Sicily? If you answered dressing up a dead guy and throwing him in the ocean, then you might have worked for MI5 in 1943. Operation Mincemeat. Let's talk about it. World War II, 1943. The Allies were looking for a foothold in southern Europe and to start pushing back against the Axis powers. The best place for this was Sicily. Being how it's the soccer ball on the boot that is Italy, it's a great staging point to start the march north through Italy on the way to Berlin. However, if Hitler found out, he could easily just reinforce the island and make it a very bloody battle to start this off. And that's not good. That's not what we want. We want to take the least amount of casualties along with dealing with the least amount of enemies possible. This is good. Lowering the casualties is always good. Less resistance is always good. So it was the British's job to trick the Axis powers into thinking that we were going to attack Greece and Sardinia. The conversation at MI5, and I'm paraphrasing here, and by paraphrasing, I mean I'm just making shit up. Brainstorming time. We need to trick the Germans into thinking we're going to land in Greece and Sardinia instead of Sicily. What do you got? Oh, we could send some ships down to Greece to make them think we're staging for a landing, and then we could do some bombing runs so that they think that we're softening up targets before we actually attack. We should probably save the bombs for actual targets right now. Oh, what about doing another inflatable army? We can move that down there to think that we're staging for an attack that way. We've already done that a few times before. I think they're going to catch on to it. Guys, what about we take a dead guy, handcuff a briefcase full of forged documents, and throw him in the ocean? You know what? Fuck it. Let's do that. Let's throw a dead guy in the ocean. If it's stupid and it works, then it's not stupid. So that's the plan they went with. They would start getting it ready, then approach leadership for approval before they actually went through with it. So now, enter our main characters. We have Ewan Montagu, a British naval officer, and Charles Cholmondeley of MI5. They would be the driving force behind all of this. The first part was tricky. It was to find someone who very recently died but looked like they could be in the military. That part is harder than you think, considering this is Britain during World War II, and everyone who could pass as being in the military was probably already in the military because there was a world war on their doorstep. But eventually they found our next main character, but he's dead. So is he a character, or would his body be more of a prop? I'm not too sure, but also he was a type of person that Montague refused to name and just said,
a bit of a ne'er-do-well, and that the only worthwhile thing that he ever did. He did after his death.
So I don't know. Let me know what you think below. But his name was Glenville Michael, a homeless man who died on January 28th of 1943 from ingesting rat poison. Between the fact that the fate of the free world was at stake and the organizers could not give less of a shit about this guy, I'm going to take some bets on if he did it to himself, if it was an accident that he swallowed the rat poison, or if it was an accident that he swallowed the rat poison. So he was to assume the identity of William Martin. He had a verifiable service number. He was a captain that was acting as a major in the Royal Marines. An acting rank like this is when you get a temporary promotion to fill a role that's normally for someone of a higher rank. So it's like a temporary type promotion, but sometimes you keep it and sometimes they find someone else. But since he is getting dumped in the ocean, being a Marine makes sense, since being on the ocean is kind of the thing that they're known for. He was also dressed in the correct uniform with all the stuff that matched the service records for that number, and he carried a briefcase that was attached to him. In the briefcase was 2 fake intel letters. And the first letter was from Lieutenant General Sir Archibald Nye, Vice Chief of the Imperial General Staff, written to General Sir Harold Alexander, commander of the 18th Army Group. All right, nailed it. Moving on. This letter outlined the Allied plan to invade Greece and Sardinia. It mentioned the need to mislead the enemy about the real objective, which was implied to be Greece, and referred to a diversionary operation in Sardinia. After a couple times of MI5 trying to tell him what to write, and it's just not looking like a normal letter, they just gave the general some talking points and let him wing it. Montague was impressed with how it turned out, with the key part of the letter stating,
"We have recent information that the Bosch have been reinforcing and strengthening their defenses in Greece and Crete, and Siggs felt that our forces for the assault were insufficient. It was agreed by the Chiefs of Staff that the 5th Division should be reinforced by 1 brigade group for the assault on the beach south of Cape Araxos, and that a similar reinforcement should be made for the 56th Division at Kalamata."
He also included some of the touchy subjects, like how the US was giving the British that served with American units Purple Hearts that they did not want. He also named Sicily as a cover target for the real invasion into Greece. The second one was a letter of introduction from Admiral Louis Mountbatten, Chief of Combined Operations, to General Dwight Eisenhower. This one also supported the idea of Greece and Sardinia being the primary targets. This one was sprinkled with specific references to logistical challenges and the need for coordination with the Greek resistance, as well as how Martin was referred to as an amphibious warfare expert on loan until the assault was over. And also a corny joke about sardines, hoping that it would be seen as a coded word for Sardinia. They also put an eyelash in the letter so that if they got returned, they could check to see if it was open while the Spanish had it. Since Montague was worried about the Spanish not opening anything, since the Spanish were Roman Catholic and the Roman Catholic prejudice against tampering with corpses. On top of the 2 letters, they also added personal things like a photo of his fiancée named Pam. This is actually MI5 clerk Jean Leslie. Along with 2 love letters from her, a receipt for an engagement ring, a letter from his dad, and a message from the bank saying that his account was overdrafted. It was probably because of the engagement ring. They also tried to make a photo ID of him, but every picture they took looked just exactly how you think it would. Picture of a dead guy. So they found someone that looked kind of like him and used that instead. There were also some other odds and ends, like a book of stamps, keys, a tailor receipt for a new shirt, and then some tickets and hotel receipts that placed him in London from the 18th to the 24th of April. That last little bit would be added before they tossed him overboard. They also did experiments on what type of ink would hold up best under the conditions in the ocean. Incredible attention to detail, like only spies really do. So with the body and the fake background taken care of, they transported it for cold storage, and here's a picture of them doing that. The next part of the plan was to get the body to be discovered somewhere that the briefcase contents would wind up with the German intelligence officers, and the best bet for that was Spain. Although they were officially neutral, there was sympathizers in the government, so it was expected that any intel they found would find its way to the Abwehr, which is the German intelligence group. And then on April 13th, the British had a meeting about this to get the final approvals. They told Colonel John Bevan, the head of London Controlling Section, they were in charge of things like this, that he needed to get the final go-ahead from Churchill. So when Bevan approached Churchill for the approval, he also warned them about the downsides, like they may not find it, or just simply give the briefcase back without going through it, general disclaimers in case it didn't work. And Churchill was like,
"In that case, we will have to the body back and give it another swim."
The operation was a go. The final phase of the plan was to board the submarine, the HMS Sarah, with the body in a can of dry ice to preserve it, get to a spot off the coast of Spain, and then throw it in the ocean and leave. They set sail on April 19th, 1943, and surfaced on April 30th, 1943 at 4:15 a.m. Threw his ass overboard and left. And now all they could do was wait. And they didn't have to wait long. 9:30 a.m. on the same day, a local fisherman found the body. He reported it to the Spanish authorities, who then in turn reported it to a British consul, Francis Hasselin, that an English body was found. Hasselin then sent some messages back to London. Then the British, leaning into the whole scheme, sent some messages back, and one of those was encoded. It said how important it was that he gets the briefcase back before the Germans find out about it, since it had a bunch of sensitive information in it. Why would you use a coded message if you want the Germans to know about the briefcase? That's easy. They just used the code that they knew the Germans broke. During the autopsy, Hasselin was there with 2 Spanish doctors. Him, not wanting them to figure out it was a 3-month-old corpse, was like, guys, look, it's hot out here. This guy fucking stinks. How about we just wrap this up, wash our hands, and go get lunch? And they were like, yeah, that sounds good. And they wrote it off that he drowned. Briefcase went to a few different places before making its way back to Hasselin, who, when he got it, he sent it to London. While in London, they checked and saw that everything was still there, but the eyelash was gone. After a few weeks, Churchill was sent a letter on the status of everything that read,
"Mincemeat swallowed rod, line and sinker by the right people, and from the best information they look like acting on it."
Swallowed rod. But from the top down, it was believed to the point that when some of the intel guys had doubts about all of this, their hires basically told them to shut the fuck up. They knew what they were doing. Probably something about, I'm in charge for a reason, blah, blah, blah. You report to me. I know what I'm doing better than you, blah, blah, blah. You know how asshole bosses are. So they started moving a bunch of troops and gear to Greece, along with fucking Rommel, the desert fox himself, to be in charge of the defenses of Greece. If you know anything about World War II, then you know that's a big deal. With this new intel, there was a strategy meeting between the Italians and the Germans because they knew the Allies were up to something, where Mussolini was sure that they were going to invade Sicily, and Hitler said, no, my reports say that they're going to invade Greece, so shut the fuck up and do what you're told. Or something like that. July 9th, 1943. The Allies launched Operation Husky. The invasion of Sicily had began, and it had considerably less resistance, even less than what was expected. The Allies even intercepted messages that 4 hours after the invasion began, Hitler was still sending planes out of Sicily to Sardinia, thinking that this was just a diversion for the real invasion. July 25th, 1943. Due to the attack and being unprepared for it, the Italian Grand Council of Fascism, that's the real name, go look it up. They voted to limit Mussolini's power and gave control of the army to King Victor Emmanuel III. The next day, the king fired him and threw him in jail, and then started a new government that began to have secret negotiations with the Allies. Who would have thought that trusting Hitler would get you into trouble, but fuck him. The new command of the military didn't matter, and Sicily fell on August 17th, but not before most of the Germans could retreat back to Italy. The successful invasion of Sicily opened up southern Europe to the Allies and paving their way for further advances into Italy for the push to Berlin, and eventually helping to end the war in Europe, along with this little thing called D-Day on the other side of Europe the following year. So Operation Mincemeat was a big success. As for Glenware Michael, or Major William Martin, he was buried with full military honors in Huelva, Spain. His gravestone originally read William Martin, who served as Major Royal Marines. But you can see at some point they changed it and added his real name, but I can't find the date that happened. This just goes to show everyone that to win wars, sometimes you have to think outside of the box, even if that box is a coffin. I just can't believe they wrote a couple letters, handcuffed them to a dead guy, threw it in the ocean, and it was a big part of winning World War II.